King's Disease is Nas's 13th studio album and his first release since 2018's Nasir. In a similar fashion to that album, which was entirely produced by Kanye West, this album is entirely produced by Hit Boy, who's produced such singles as Sorry for Beyonce, Niggas in Paris for Kanye and Jay-Z, Backseat Freestyle for Kendrick. This album has a kind of aura about it where Nas is the most assured and confident and focused he's been in a long while. And I think it is a much more focused album than an album like Nasir. His kind of adversarial, paternal, regal wisdom reminds me of an album like 2012's Life is Good. The album comes in at a brisk 38 minutes. It's filled with a slew of sub 3-minute songs, as well as some star-studded features. The first couple of tracks set the tone for the entire album. You've got Nas's very, very calculated, clever delivery and lyrics, coupled with Hit Boy's production, which is a kind of amalgamation of traditional hip-hop sampling techniques with some contemporary elements thrown in for good measure. A song like Blue Benz, for me, is a perfect example of what I believe Hit Boy and Nas are trying to do on this album. Nas is painting a very, very gritty and vivid image of his hood New York upbringing. Hit Boy provides the dark, brooding, kind of bigger, larger-than-life beat with some twinkling pianos in the background and a kind of monstrous, growling synth. The one thing that I do believe is the strongest element of this album, the most consistent element of this album, is Hit Boy's production. Till the War Is Won, which is easily the most somber and down-tempo song on the entire album, makes use of a very creative sample from the score from If Beale Street Could Talk. And that sample kind of lays the emotional foundation for the rest of the song. It's a song about trying to celebrate and uplift women who are in times of struggle, especially single mothers particularly, as well as just detailing the gritty, harsh upbringing of having to navigate the kind of upbringing that Nas had. What I think can be awkward when trying to do a song like this is that it can come off as overly paternalistic and it can come off quite patronizing as well. But I think the way Nas and Lil Durk went about it on this song is done very respectfully and very tastefully. Speaking of Lil Durk, he continues his streak of 2020 features on this song. He comes through with a very, very interesting flow. You can hear the emotion in his voice even through his auto-tune. And I think it makes for one of, if not the strongest features on this entire album. As for the rest of the features on this album, they are kind of hit and miss on a lot of the songs. And I think that is the one major drawback of this album. The song Replace Me with Big Sean and Don Toliver, for me, is the most safe, middle of the road and bland song on the entire album. Big Sean's verse at the end is one of the most comatose things I've heard all year. Don Toliver as an artist is very creative and he has a very, very distinctive voice, and usually he can't really do any wrong. And he doesn't do wrong on this song. I just think it's something we've heard from him done better on other songs. The song Car 85 with Charlie Wilson, I think, is a much more engaging and creative song from both a musical and lyrical standpoint. The way it's written kind of reminds me of Kanye's Drive Slow from Late Registration, where Nas is painting a picture of his youth through the lens of being a passenger in a car. Charlie Wilson's vocals, as usual, are on point, and his vocal delivery and the way his voice is used intermittently makes it sound like his voice is just part of the sample. A song like All Bad featuring Anderson .Paak is kind of confusing to me because it does basically just sound like an Anderson .Paak song with Nas slapped on. It doesn't sound like a Nas song. Again, Hit Boy's production is very, very strong, but there's little to none of Nas's originality and sound on this song. It just sounds like an Anderson .Paak song. For as strong as a bulk of this album is to me, the other major drawback aside from the hit and miss features is that everything feels very safe and reserved and calculated. There's nothing awful on here. There's nothing offensively wrong, but there's nothing on there's little to nothing on here that I don't think we've heard Nas do much better on previous projects. If we are going to go back and compare it to 2018's Nasir, I do think this album is a slight improvement on that, but I think the one strength that album has over this album is that I feel Nas was kind of willing to take more risks with that album, even if they didn't necessarily work out in the end. However, since it's Nas, even his mid-range material is better than most rappers' material because it's Nas, so it is still an engaging listen for me, and there are some standout tracks. I do have to say that the one thing I do appreciate about this album is Nas's willingness to try and incorporate some newer sounds, but I kind of have to attribute that to Hit Boy. But kind of paradoxically, he's trying to incorporate these new sounds, but it still does feel very, very safe and kind of middle of the road. It's a very mature album. It's a very clever album because it's Nas, and the production is very creative, but it's just nothing new. Those are my thoughts on the album. Let me know yours in the comments down below. Make sure to like, subscribe, and dong the bell, and I will see you next time.